Hello YouTube and welcome to another video. It is currently a little after 1 a.m. and I am just finishing up editing my video and realized that I hadn't shot an intro for it. So that's what I'm doing now. I got quite a bit more work done to the hull. I don't remember exactly where I left off last time or what I told you guys what I was going to do. But the footage that I got is fairly straightforward, fairly self-explanatory. So working some more on getting the front fill installed. And if you watch around to the end of the video, you will see that I say one thing and then it very quickly cuts to me doing something else. And that is because I'm going to film me doing something else or telling you guys about something else right now. All right, YouTube, I've got the X2 flipped upside down and I'm starting to attach the front fill from the outside. So I've used the mini sander here to clean up all the fiberglass that I had used to hold it in place temporarily, and I've tapered a little bit. I'm going to probably go from here to, I don't know, halfway up the side, maybe all the way even, just to get a nice smooth transition between this and this. More so at the back because there is a bit of a step here. And then across the back, I've just right now decided what I'm going to do. So the camera probably can't pick it up, but from the front, this part is actually lower than this part. So I got to build up a little bit here and transition onto here. So I'm probably going to bring the fiberglass back to about here, partly to transition and partly to make it strong. And then as I come down over the sides, this is actually fairly even. And then as I get to the center of this groove, this actually starts to get higher again. What I'm going to do is I'm going to actually sand this part down so that it's flush. So I'm going to taper the fiberglass. I'm going to taper the front fill into the back part. And I'm going to do that because of what I have to do here. If you look at this, you can see that that line is actually off to one side. So this doesn't fit perfectly and these lines don't line up. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to taper this in so that it lines up perfectly with this side. And then I'm going to taper partly on this side and then build it up so that it's basically the groove gets a little bit wider through here and then tapers back as it also tapers down. Hope that makes sense. So right now what I'm going to do is try to plan out and cut out the panels or the fiberglass to taper in the sides. And so I think what I'm going to do is run one solid sheet all the way from basically up here back to about here. And then what I'm going to do is in some areas I'll double up the layers or triple up the layers. Through the back section here it might even take 4 layers. So yeah, I'm going to allow it to bulge out a little bit here and then taper it back in both on the side and on the bottom. The piece comes to, we'll let it come around here so I can taper it in. And we'll come right up to this edge. Let's go do a test fit before we cut a bunch more out to match it. I think I'm going to have to profile the bottom. Alright, this will just be a reference line. I'm not actually going to cut on this line because that would be too far. All right. Now what I'm going to do is copy this. I'm going to make 3 more of these. So 1 more for this side and 2 for the other side. When I'm laying this stuff out, I'll probably do some fitment work. So I'll probably cut the edges down a little bit so there's a bit of a taper in the material. What I mean by that is I'll probably make one of them like 1 inch shorter, half an inch shorter, so that when I stack the layers on top of each other, it naturally tapers out to the end. I'm going to need another piece in through this area. This one is going to be a little bit tricky for me to figure out. I think I'm going to try to be clever. Alright, so we'll start with that edge flat against there. Come up. I want to come straight along this edge. And down like this. And it probably only needs to come down a little bit. I'll cut it a little bit long at first. And then the taper here, I think I'll start it like this and go like this. This line along here is the most critical. It has to be fairly accurate. And then this line here is just going to be feathered anyway, but then this line here needs to be very accurate as well. Alright, that's going to sit like that. And then the next one, well, I'm going to make one of these for the other side as well. But then the next one will just come to here, because this is thick enough for this area. That actually worked out the first time. Alright, the next thing I'm going to do is make a piece. I think I'm actually going to mark a line across here as a reference point. We'll come back to here, say. This section here might be a little bit tricky, but what I'm going to do is come just outside of here, like that. And then I'm going to follow back along this edge. And then right across this line. And same thing here. The fiberglass on the inside of the hull comes back like this. And so it has a pretty good bond, and it is, I think, 5 layers, so 5 millimeters thick on top of the other side of this. So you can see this is fairly thick, so it's probably over 3/8, 10 millimeters thick through this area here. So not a lot to worry about as far as strength, but I'm still going to basically build 2 more millimeters up from here all the way back to here. I'm going to fill this area in so that I've got a good bond, and then I'm going to sand it back and taper it once it's all laid down. I have some poly epoxy mixed up, and I'm going to add some Cabasil, some thickener, anti-sag they call it here. And I'm going to use this to fill in some gaps and cracks in the X2 so that we get a good bond with the other materials that I'm adding. If I have enough of it left over, I might do a little touch up around the front area. I've cleaned up the hull a little bit, and so yeah, we just need to get this mixed up and get that sorted out. Look at the consistency of this. It's like not quite peanut butter. It's like a little bit thicker than mayonnaise, I guess. All right, let's get this stuff smeared in here. It looks like I'm going to have lots left over to do the front section, which is good. All right, I'm going to put this in here like this. Make sure that I get it covered up very well. I got one of these large mixing sticks, tongue depressor things, and I'm going to try to use that to profile this edge here and hope that it works out. I was chatting away to the camera telling you guys all sorts of stories about the bottom of this hull, and then I looked at the camera and the Hero 7 had shut off without any warning whatsoever. So I don't know what it did or didn't record, so I'm going to say it all over again. But this time I'm going to try to do a little bit less talking. So I got this area filled in here. I added a couple of pieces of fiberglass. I didn't expect them to wet out. I didn't try to make them wet out because I'm not concerned about the strength in through here. I added a nice fillet with the epoxy and cabasil, and also it is attached quite securely on the back side of here. There's also going to be more attachment through this section, and I'm putting 2 millimeters of chop strand mat over the top. That's going to go all the way from here to here, and so it's going to be a total of 7 millimeters thick through the hull in this section. In this section is the thinnest. It'll be 7 millimeters. Here it'll be about 9 millimeters, and back here it's already 10. It will be 12 millimeters. So plenty thick through that area. If anything, it's a little bit overkill. So I'm definitely not worried about those pieces of fiberglass not wetting out. It will just basically act as some bulk or spacing core material to allow the fiberglass that I put on over here to have something to bond to. Once I finish up these two repairs back here, and of course do all the tapering in work and finishing work on these areas, I think I might actually put the carbon fiber on the bottom of the hull, just to try to make this video series a little bit more interesting for you guys. I know it's been a whole lot of the same for quite a while now. So I'm going to try to make it so that it's a little bit more interesting. That's not a guaranteed thing. I might come up with a good reason for not doing that. When I put the carbon fiber on the bottom, when I skin it in carbon fiber, I'm probably only going to come to the edge of the bond line here. See if I can point this out with a pen. Probably going to come to here and not actually work my way across the bottom for a couple of reasons. One being that nobody's ever going to look underneath here unless the ski is upside down. Nobody's going to see in there. So I don't really care if the carbon fiber comes across the bottom. The second reason is that if I try to turn this corner, this is going to be a sharp 90-degree bend. It's probably going to end up peeling up and causing problems with the carbon fiber bonding to the side of the hull. So I definitely don't want that to happen. And also I want to keep the bulk or the thickness of material through this bottom section as thin as possible, because if you're ever picking up the hull from the side, you want a nice deep channel to grab into, whether it's with your fingers or some kind of a lift. So I definitely don't want to be adding material in along there. It is now the following day. I was able to get my service calls done fairly quickly today, and I got home around 2:30. It is currently around 3:30, and this stuff is set up. I've already sanded most of the areas that need to be sanded, and so I think I'm actually going to mix up another batch of thickened epoxy and lay it down in a few key areas to make sure that my glass sticks down well. So I'm at very least going to put these layers down and then try to do these side patches. I've modified the layup of the cloth to make it fit more effectively and efficiently, and so I'm going to go over that kind of quickly with you guys, because when I start doing it, I'm probably not going to have the cognitive ability to actually explain myself or what I'm doing. So first of all, I just trimmed these pieces down. Nothing really to say about that. They're going to go on there. And they don't need to be numbered in any way, because that's just how they go. These side pieces I'll go over really quickly, what I did and why I did it. So this overhangs a little bit. I know you probably can't see it on camera, but there is a lip here, and the lip tapers down as you get to here until it's flush at about that line. So what I did is I cut these two panels for the side. I was going to put these on over the outside, but what I've decided I'm going to do is actually put these on first. So I've got 7 pieces. We've got 7 is going to go there. It's going to go underneath the lip of this front fill. And then this piece is going to go on, and it is slightly shorter on each side. So it's slightly shorter here and here. And so that's going to give me a little bit of a natural taper. And then it comes out to the thickness. So this is about 2 millimeters. So that gives me the thickness that I need here. And then what I'm going to do, I've got these pieces all numbered. So I've got 6, and then I've got 5. This one is going to go on here. I had it so that it was wrapping around, but I don't want to add too much bulk to this area. So what I'm going to do is put this on here like this, and I've cut it off perfectly lined up so that it lines up with the top of that. Then the next one, which is going to be part number 4, it is actually going to go over and overlap down onto the other layer. And the reason why I want to do that, for 2 reasons. One, I still do need to add a little bit of bulk to this area so that I can taper it out. But more importantly, I want to try to get this layer to hold the layer underneath down. So because this is a very short piece and it's folded around that corner, it's going to try to pop up like it is now. And so unless I put something, if I put 2 pieces like that, there's no way I would get it to hold down unless I held it there until it had completely gelled up. So what I'm doing is I'm using this piece to overlap, and it's kind of covering up the whole thing. And then I've got number 3, which basically just curves around the corner again. So that doesn't add a whole lot of bulk down to this area. And then I've got number 2, and as I cut these, I cut them shorter this way as well, so it's a natural taper. And that lines up here and overlaps slightly, but not as much as this one, to continue with that kind of tapering effect. So this is number 2, and then number 1 is going to be this piece, and it's going to sit up slightly from the bond line. It's going to overlap these pieces to hopefully hold that down. And again, it's going to come up to this edge, and I've marked a red line here so that I know where I want it to sit there. I've marked a red line here so I know where I want the first piece to sit. And yeah, that should give me enough bulk of material to add plenty of strength, and also so that I don't need to use a huge amount of filler to taper this out. I've placed a mixing cup on the scale so that I can weigh my material and see how much epoxy I need to mix up. So I've got all of the cloth here that I plan on using. I'm gonna put this on the mixing cup, and we've got 282 grams. 225 and 75. My plan to use layer number 4 to hold down layer number 3 went perfectly, so it made a really nice bend there. And then I'm doing the same thing. Layer number 2 is going to hold down layer number 3. So layer number 2 is going to come down over the edge here and hold that down. And then layer 1 is going to sandwich everything together. So I'm just going to mix up another batch of epoxy. I'm going to make a little bit extra. And whatever's left over, I'm going to mix a little bit of Cabasil in with. And I'm going to make sure to get down into these little cracks and crevices. Some of this stuff didn't line up perfectly. And so I'm going to make sure to do that. Depending on how much I have left over, I might do a little bit of a taper around the front of this. I'm just finishing up. I'm going to have to come back and check on this several times because it's trying to peel up a little bit along this edge. I'm definitely not terribly concerned about it. I put some thickened epoxy underneath here. I put quite a bit of thickened epoxy down. I put some along this edge. Along these edges here, I filled in some low spots there and there. I put some in this groove along there. And I put some in behind the number 1 piece here, all along this edge, along here, so that this piece of fiberglass would taper out nicely. And I think that might be it, but it seems to have gone quite well. All right, YouTube, I have been busy. It is currently 1 a.m. A little bit earlier, I put some heat onto this stuff to help it cure up. Basically what I was trying to do is get this spot to stick down so I didn't have to babysit it all night, and it seems to have worked. It's not terribly critical what happens in this area because basically this is just to add some bulk so that I can taper it out. So a lot of this material is actually going to get removed to allow me to taper it back. Looks like it turned out well. I've got lots of material on the side to work with, I think. I will very likely have to add some fairing compound to some parts of it once I sand it. I also added some black epoxy to the front after I added the stuff that had a lot of fill in it. And that's because I've been playing with the bed plates mold. So I added some touch up on that. So I'm hoping that I only have to sand this one more time and then I can actually attempt to make a part out of it. I have now jumped forward in time and sanded down the bed plate mold. Unfortunately, the sanding that I have done has revealed some more imperfections. The reason why I'm having so much trouble with this bed plate mold is because when I was making it, it was only the second mold that I ever made, and I was convinced that it wasn't going to work. Because I was convinced that it wasn't going to work, I used very little epoxy or gel coat on the first layer, didn't let it sit up long enough, and put the second layer on, not very thick as well, and the cloth basically started pulling up and created a lot of little air pockets. And yeah, so now as I sand to try to smooth out the surface, I'm breaking through to those air pockets. The way that you're supposed to do this is either use a tooling gel coat or use a thick layer of gel coat, or use several layers of gel coat and let them fully tack up before you add the next layer or add cloth. I did none of those things, and so it shouldn't be surprising that this is giving me so much trouble. Also, I had to add these offset washers here to get the offset for the different thickness of the bed plate. I had to add these pieces in the center here because I didn't put them on at first, and discovered that if I was going to do vacuum bagging, it would be kind of necessary to have those. I was going to do hand layup on this at first and then kind of changed my mind over time. Had to add these flanges. So basically I started out not believing that I could do this, and then as I did, I just tried to make the crappy bed plate mold that I made work. So instead of struggling with this, spending a whole bunch more time trying to fix new issues that arise along the way, I'm going to cut my losses on that, and I've already started to make version 2. This one has flanges all the way around. I've already got the spacers installed. I've got indicators marked in all 4 spots. On this one, I didn't do a good job of indicating where the holes are. This will make it really easy to know where to drill the holes for the bed plate once it's made. So that will make my life easier. Because it has flanges on the front and back and not just the sides, I can choose to infuse it from side to side, from center to the sides, or this way or this way. And so it gives me a lot more options. It's going to be way easier to lay the materials down. It's going to be less likely to puncture or rupture the bag. And so, yeah, this is just going to work out a whole lot better, guaranteed. One thing that I'm going to do to make sure that it works better is I'm actually going to add at least 3 fairly thick layers of gel coat to make sure that I do not have any air pockets. I'm also going to use a polyester resin. I do have some of that here. It's a lot cheaper and it sets up fairly quickly, so I don't have to do a whole lot of messing around. I should be able to get this done tomorrow, which will be Sunday, which is when you guys will be watching this video. So hopefully this works out and I can stop messing about with this one and actually get a part made. That would be really fantastic. As far as the X2 hull goes, you guys will have to wait and see how that turned out. The epoxy did harden up and I did get to do some sanding on it, but yeah, I'll try to release a video before next weekend. Maybe I'll get one out on Tuesday, but that is going to do it for this one. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.